Philippines and in the US. So grateful to see everyone. So we will be asking you to please start turning off your microphone when another person is speaking, and also when there's a hymn singing and during group responsive reading. We will ask you to turn on your microphone when you have a part in speaking. As much as possible, please turn on your video so we can see each other. Again, just to remind everyone, if you have not renamed yourself, please type up your name, year you were commissioned as a deaconess or home missioner, and where you're from, US or Philippines. And if you are related to a deaconess or home missioner, please type up what is your relationship to the deaconess and home missioner. I think we are ready to start. I would like to start by also introducing our leadership team. So our core team who's been behind this planning since the beginning, since the first gathering that we had. And we just want to let you know that there'll be other gatherings coming soon. So please stay tuned. We will be announcing that later on. Our leadership team are Megan Hale from US, Christina Manyabat from the Philippines, Sharon McCart from US, Sheila Faye Binuya from the Philippines, Emma Cantor from the Philippines, and myself from the US. We'd like to specially recognize two important people who has a very vital part in this gathering tonight. Norma Dulyaga, who is a deaconess from the Philippines, was the one who designed our liturgy today. So we're just so grateful for her talent for providing us this liturgy. So thank you, Norma. And also we'd like to thank Joy. Joy, where's your picture? I can't find your picture. But anyway, Joy Hayag is also a deaconess who is here in the United States. She will be our technician today. So she will be our main host for this gathering. So thank you, Joy. And now we will start with our liturgy from that Norma will be leading us with the act of praise.
In the blossoming of flowers, we pass on the seeds. The earth will always grace us the world with flowers. Then the services we give, they will flourish, will not be forgotten. Hope is a formidable power. It breaks the darkness, releases dawn. It ruptures the earth to blossom flowers. It strengthens the bent poor and lifts the downtrodden. It turns the grief into a cry of justice. The budding of flowers is a struggle against forgetting. As they blossom, all life remembers primordial music accompanying creation. Flowers are not weak, as some may perceive. The blossoming of flowers is an explosion of dreams fulfilled, beautiful, powerful, and elegant. With the flowers shall we dance the gentle breeze, stunning into silence nature's contradictions. The movement of flowers is of harmony and melody. The dance of flowers with the wind and light is a dance rhyming with our heart.
freshness of the morning, newness of each night. You are still creating endless love and light. This we see as shadows part, many gifts from one great heart. Many gifts, one spirit, one love, one in many ways. In our differences, blessed from diversity we praise. One giver, one Lord, one spirit, one word, known in many ways. Hallowing our days, for the giver, for the gifts. Praise, praise, praise.
Why have we gathered here?
To celebrate, to thank God for the witnesses and testimonies of Deaconess and Home Missioner work.
We come from different generations. We are from other geographical locations. We were from different historical circumstances when we decided to become deaconesses and home missioners.
God has gathered us as a community of deaconess and home missioners, celebrating our differences into one diaconal work, alleviate suffering, eradicate causes of injustice, and all that robs life of dignity and worth, facilitate the development of full human potential, and share in building global community through the Church Universal.
We have come together thanking the years of the faithfulness of God's accompaniment in doing our ministries as a deaconess and home missioner.
We have witnesses who grew with us in knowledge and wisdom.
We will listen to some of them.
In a few minutes, we will be hearing from 4 individuals, and I will introduce 2 of them. The first one we will hear from is Nora Asadillo Cunningham, who is the Spiritual Growth and Formation Specialist at United Women in Faith's National Office. She seeks to facilitate opportunities for spiritual growth and nourishment for United Women in Faith membership at the intersection of personal inward relationship with God and connection to an outward journey of transformative action. Prior to her work with United Women in Faith, she was a Global Mission Fellow of the United Methodist Church, serving 2 years in her motherland of the Philippines. She received her Master of Divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where she studied Christian social ethics and post-colonial and liberation theologies. She currently resides in occupied Lapani territory of the Bronx, New York, with her spouse and 2 cats, who sometimes like to make an appearance on the screen. So you may meet her cats today. Our next speaker after Nora will be Deaconess Joy Prim. Joy is originally from Western North Carolina. She has been a United Methodist woman, which are now called United Women in Faith, for over half her life, since the age of 12. She could recite the purpose of United Women in Faith before she could read chapter books. The foundation laid by United Women in Faith for caring about issues of women, children, and youth in our local communities and around the world created a spark inside of Joy with a yearning for more mission work. Joy's current home annual conference is the California Pacific Conference, where she first worked in advocacy as a young adult missionary, addressing issues of human rights of migrants and immigrants in Los Angeles to countries overseas from Central America, Palestine, to the Philippines. The deep internalization of the United Women in Faith's purpose inspired Joy to apply for the Young Adult Missionary Mission Intern Program, which is now called Global Mission Fellows. Her international placement was in Hong Kong, serving with migrant workers who are primarily women from the Philippines and Indonesia. For Joy, home is not a physical location, but instead is a life lived in solidarity of the work for justice and peace for all God's community. Since August 2020, she is currently back in the mission field in Hong Kong, serving with the same ministry where she served as a young adult missionary. Her deaconess appointment is both her missionary assignment and her work with the Hong Kong Campaign for Human Rights and Peace in the Philippines.
Johanna Chikay Cantor de la Cruz serves as Assistant Program Secretary for Human Rights, Program Unit on Faith, Witness, and Service of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. Her mother is a deaconess in the person of Miss Emma Cantor, Regional Missionary for Asia and the Pacific, United Women in Faith. Our next speaker will be Dr. John Mark Villanueva. He's a full-time medical director and owner of John Mark D. Villanueva Medical Clinic and Hospital. He is a part-time choir director and full-time church organist at Wesley United Methodist Church in the Davao Episcopal area in the Philippines. His mother, who is with us now, Lina Daumos Villanueva, was a deaconess turned pastor. He has a sister who served as a deaconess.
So, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's nice to be here and thank you for having me. So, as mentioned, my name is Johanna de la Cruz, but I'm mostly known by my peers and my family as Chikay. So, Chikay, it's easier to remember Chikay. So I am a proud daughter of a deaconess, and I'm happy to share with you today how the deaconess around me, especially when I was growing up, have impacted my life in so many ways. So when I was young, I was always surrounded by loving and caring deaconesses, and I came to know them through my mom. So I call them tita, or sometimes auntie, or sometimes teacher. And there were deaconesses in the churches that we go to and in the different institutions that my mom engages in. There's just this big calming energy whenever I am surrounded by these women, a feeling that everything will be all right kind of energy. It's cool to be with them. So I always felt that nurturing feminine energies whenever I'm around them. It's like the Holy Spirit hovering around me. And that vibe stayed with me all throughout when I was growing up. So that's when I felt loved and cared for whenever I'm with them, and I feel safe and included. I just want to share to you my experience when I was in kindergarten. I remember my teacher, who is a deaconess. I still remember her name. My classmates and I call her Teacher Portia. She has long, beautiful jet black hair and that I sometimes fancied about. She taught us a lot of songs and memory verses in the Bible. And I remember her as a very patient teacher with her students. She has had a very happy disposition in the classroom, but she was also very firm with how she disciplined us, her students. So Teacher Portia, that deaconess teacher, became my model teacher when I was growing up. So by the time that I had to move school and attend my first grade in other school, I remember saying to my mother, how I miss her, and hoping that I can go back to being a kindergarten because I still wanted Teacher Portia to be my teacher. Wishing that all teachers would be like her, warm, inviting, and sincere, and very matyaga, very patient. And that is how I see deaconesses in my life. And ever since, they have been an integral part of my life since then. And as I grew up and expand my social networks, I learned that there are different types of deaconesses in various settings. So we have deaconesses that are in charge of church work. Sometimes they are more busy and active than their pastors. Most of the time, I think, I have seen deaconesses prepare the church for Sunday service, practice the choir, prepare the liturgy, teach children in Sunday schools, and lead congregations. I have also seen deaconesses who teach in schools and universities. I've also met deaconesses who do different Christian ministries beyond the United Methodist Church, who also join the ecumenical movement, like my mom, Tita Norma, and practice their ministries in creating programs empowering women, the LGBTI community, the youth, and the children. I also came to know deaconesses who became missionaries, also like my mom, who went to different communities in the provinces around the Philippines, in and around Asia, and in other parts of the world. So I also came to know deaconesses who became missionaries, like my mother also, who go to different communities in the provinces here and around the Philippines, around Asia, who meet with the Bible women, and as they work with them in the community, empowering other members of the society. So deaconesses for me also comes in various shapes and sizes. They are also deaconesses who went beyond their churches, who serve institutions and lead people's organizations. I believe that deaconesses are multi-talented people. Most of the time, the people that I grew up with, the deaconesses that I grew up with, are part of the People's Movement for Change, like here in the Philippines and in the world. And some of them also opted to go to far-flung areas to teach in the mountains, to teach the peasants and the indigenous peoples, and to be with the people in their struggles. I have known deaconesses who are also active, like them, in social justice. They go to rallies and sing and resist with the people so that peace and justice may be attained. I have known deaconesses to serve the mothers of Tokhang victims or the war on drugs, who go to almost the very ends of the earth and communities, even unimaginable communities, just to be in solidarity with the poor, the oppressed, and the marginalized. They even visit jails to visit political prisoners. These are the deaconesses that I've known my entire life and have shaped and continue to shape who I am right now. I am surrounded by them, and I am awed and inspired by their tiring energy of service, so that others may be seen, heard, and so that others may continue to live as well. For me, these women continue to champion goodness and the sanctity of life that God has given to all. So I dedicate this to my mom, Teacher Portia, Auntie Olive, Tita Norma, Tita Rubilin, Ma'am Chita, Tita Phoebe, Tita Darlene, Tita Arceli, Ate Arceli, Ate Tabs, Benny, and many more deaconesses, my aunties. I call them aunties. So I am very thankful for the lives of these women and for being present in my life. I am thankful for my mom, most especially for being a deaconess, caring and loving mother to me and to my friends. My mom, being a deaconess that she is a very caring, has a very caring spirit that is extended most especially to the people that surround her, to her family, and to her colleagues, friends, and even the church. She raised me in an environment where everyone has a voice and has a space, and she let me express myself, which makes me feel seen and heard. She raised me in a nurturing environment where everyone is cared for and everyone should be cared for. I thank God for her life and for the person that she is, and for continuing to set an example to me, as always, to be kind and gentle to others, not only to human beings, but also to the rest of creation. For me, the deaconesses have beautiful souls. They are heroes that wear invisible capes. They impacted the people and the earth directly through their love and dedication to their families and to their communities that they serve. They have big hearts and they continue to touch lives with their presence wherever they go. Needless to say, I grew up with such beautiful spirits who moved heaven and earth to serve and change the world. Their presence in my life has made a huge impact on how I see the world today and how I go about it. They taught me that kindness has a place in this world and that kindness is a contagious one, and it might just save us all. Through their leadership, they have led me to believe that indeed women hold half of the sky and that probably God is feminine. So for all the deaconess and the women of faith that I've known, thank you very much for the lives you've dedicated to the service that you continue to serve right now. You have continued to move mountains, even if you are retired. So thank you very much for your lives, and I hope we can continue to serve each other, and may God continue to guide us all. Thank you.
We belong to you, dear Mother Earth. You nourish us with your strength. From your womb flows the rivers and seas, vegetation, forests, and mountains. Your grace sustains us. Our foremothers walked through the land. They created paths, steps, and terrain. We, your people, are stepping on the holy ground, ready to take the journey of service. Bless us, we humbly pray. Amen. Amen.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Good evening or afternoon to those who are in the States. Thank you, Ate Chikay and Tita Emma. I really resonated a lot with what you said and shared. I am Nora Asadilio Cunningham, and when Megan invited me to join tonight back in January, I was so excited to get to be a part of this gathering because I know that the Deaconess community is very special. So I grew up learning about the Deaconess Walkout of 1983, where at that time, the deaconesses, who are trained, committed, called church workers, were not given a vote in the Philippine Annual Conference. I grew up learning that that was not right, and that in the annual conference meeting, deaconesses walked out to stand up for their rights. And eventually they did get the right to vote. So I reflect on this to consider what lessons that I have learned over the years from Filipina deaconesses that have impacted my life. I think for me, understanding the role of deaconesses in my life has been to understand the significance and the particular role that women bring to ministry. Women are all different, we know that, but women in sisterhood, women in ministry, women in support of one another, were a particular kind of force to be reckoned with. So the primary deaconess in my life is my mother, Rebecca Asadillo, and so I share my reflections based on lessons from my mother. I know in all the work that she has done over the course of my life, whatever her title was, she was always a deaconess. It was an important bonding and lifelong commitment. So as some of you know, and I think it was in my bio, I was born in the Philippines, moved to the States at age 3, and then returned to Manila as an adult for 2 years as a Global Mission Fellow with the Board of Global Ministries. When I left New York from Manila in 2014, my mother's blessing for me was, may you be full. Sometimes that may be sadness, sometimes that may be joy, but may you be full. And I admit that that was not always easy. I think we've seen it even now in COVID times. When times get tough, anxiety, isolation, losing hope about a better tomorrow, they all factor in and make life feel less full. But over the course of my time there, and particularly in relationship with the deaconesses who checked in on me, made sure I was doing well, I learned that fullness comes from being in relationship with God, to be held by God, and to be in community with those around me. In reaching out, there is fullness. In sisterhood, there is fullness. Then there was a time when I reached out because of challenges in the work I was doing with out-of-school students in Tondo. My heart hurt, worrying about the success of our students. I reached out to my mom, sharing my fears that if they didn't pass this one test, that they would hurt. And she told me, then hurt with them. To be in ministry is to be in solidarity with those that you serve, to be with the marginalized, to recognize that we are all God's children, connected and supported in love, in hurt, in community as one body. At my Global Mission Fellow training, Tita Norma Doyaga came to lead us in a training on solidarity. She gave us different colored sticks. We got these little wooden sticks, and we were all given a personal description, and we were to go around trading with one another until it came time to pay taxes, and we all had to pay up. And so as resources got scarce, you could see how each person was tempted to withhold their colored sticks to survive as an individual. But what I remember getting out of that was that if we all came together and shared our resources and changed the system, then we could all be living in God's abundance. Finally, deaconesses have taught me about the power of sisterhood. That's, of course, important in my role now on staff at United Women in Faith. I went to a women's college here in the States, and so I have a baseline understanding of how special it is to be in community with women. But anytime I've been able to spend time with deaconesses through connection with my mom, I've been surrounded by love, by invitation to community, by invitation to ministry, and by fun, laughter, and good food. I've learned that sisterhood brings connection, to care for, learn from, and uplift one another. My mom and my sister took a trip to the Philippines in February of 2020, right before the pandemic. I think they even had to cut their trip short because of the pandemic. My mom had just turned 70 and had just retired when nobody believed she would ever retire, but she finally retired. And this marvelous community of mostly women celebrated my mother having reached the age of a crone. And our modern world has tended to look down on, belittle this age and this crone as being old or no longer desirable. But these women came together and transformed it into a crowning ritual for the respected elder, the sage, the wise woman. I really wish I could have been there. But the joy, the heart, the emotion that we could feel from the pictures and the videos that we got sent of this testimony, this ritual, were incredible. In sisterhood, we honor the work that has been done before us, the work being done now, and the promise of work and workers who are coming for the future. So I look up to the examples of deaconesses in my life for their commitment to walk the walk of Christ, seeking justice and loving kindness, and the covenantal bond that forms between them. In preparing for today, there are just endless stories or connections or different ways that I can think of about the ways that the work deaconesses are doing, and they continue to show me what ministry looks like. I look up to them for modeling how to live fully in heart and mind and spirit. And I am so grateful to have had the example of deaconesses to teach me that women in ministry have a holy role to play. Thank you.
This is a wind chime from Japan. Breathe on me, breath of God. Spirit, Ruah, she who hovers over the movement that never expires. Movement like the wind, that cannot be locked down.
Magandang umaga sa lahat mula dito sa Hong Kong. Good morning everyone from here in Hong Kong. Ako po si Deaconess Joy Prem. I am Deaconess Joy Prem, and since 2020, I have been actively serving as a deaconess and global ministries missionary in Hong Kong. Apologies for only joining via video today. You see, after 2 years of mission and work during the pandemic, despite not being officially commissioned, tomorrow, Sunday in Cambodia, I will finally be commissioned. The positive side of this means for those who will be at Assembly later in May, I will see you there, where I will also finally be consecrated as a deaconess. With my consecration nearing, I have taken time to reflect about the journey that got me here. You see, I can't remember a time in my life without deaconesses. And to now be finally crossing the finish line to join the order feels both surreal yet normal, like any other day, as ministries rooted in love, justice, and service is very much a part of my DNA. Born and raised in Western North Carolina, I was blessed to grow up just over 2 hours from Brooks Howell home. For our deaconess sisters in the Philippines, this is a retirement home for deaconesses and missionaries. Here, I would often forego the Friday night high school football game to get up early for events at Brooks Howell. And it was in my high school years that one of my mentors, Lynn Sloan Barnes, became a deaconess, and I started to learn more about the active deaconess community. As I began to wrestle with my calling into the mission field in college, it was the support of Lynn, deaconesses, and United Methodist women mentors who continued to encourage me to trust where I was hearing God call me and to not be afraid to say yes. It was with their support that I applied to the Young Adult Missionary Mission Intern Program, where I was assigned to serve in Hong Kong with migrant domestic workers from Philippines, Indonesia, and other Southeast Asian countries. Admittingly, I had to Google where in the world Hong Kong was, and I quickly realized the only thing I knew about Southeast Asia was the Philippines had a lot of deaconesses. But my time in Hong Kong in 2011 and 2012 with migrant domestic workers here, I found both community and my own voice to speak out against injustices. From the migrant leaders here, majority of whom are women, I learned that solidarity was a daily life choice lived out as a verb in action. Understanding migrant rights are human rights, and finding my calling into the mission field was too a calling as a human rights defender. Visiting the Philippines, I first met Filipino deaconesses and was so impressed with the courage and strength of these ladies as they shared about their ministries. The Order of Deaconess and Home Missioners stayed in the back of my mind, but the more I got involved in doing human rights work around issues in the Philippines and back in the US, the less time I had for paperwork. Returning to the US, I finished my mission intern placement serving in Los Angeles. And it was 9 years ago in Los Angeles where I met one of the few deaconesses at the time in the Western jurisdiction. Deaconess Jean Rose Smith looked at me the first time we ever talked, which will be 9 years in May, and asked me if I had ever heard of the Order of Deaconess and Home Missioner. And while she was sorry for being blunt, that I was way too outspoken to ever go into ordination. We laughed. As I said, oh yes, I had. I grew up at Brooks Howell. New to Los Angeles, I found a home in Jean's ministry, the Wesley Foundation, serving UCLA, where Jean would always introduce me as a colleague in mission, never making a deal about the fact I never attended UCLA. And it was here with the students that the university pushed to the margins. I learned of the struggles of undocumented students, shared space and tears and community when DACA was rescinded, learned about the struggles of student workers, those recently incarcerated, and helped connect doing human rights work, whether it was for Palestine, the Philippines, or Central America and beyond. In 2016, after 3 years of never leaving the US, I returned to the Philippines for the International Coalition for Human Rights in the Philippines' second Global Congress. Here, I met Deaconess Norma Dalaga, who looked at me on one of the final nights and simply asked, "Why are you not a deaconess yet?" When I commented about the paperwork, she told me, "Joy, that's just part of the work you have to do. You're doing the ministry, fill out the paperwork already." And it would be another year and another visit to the Philippines, meeting more deaconesses before I would finally find the courage to write Scott and fill out that application. It was Norma, Rubelin, and Darlene, and Emma who all kept asking me why I wasn't yet and how they could support and pray for me. And Jean and Sharon's constant reminders that my calling didn't have to be one that fit the church structure perfectly, that human rights and solidarity work was a deaconess calling that finally got me over the finish line of the application. In 2020, I had finished all of my classes and had been approved for consecration at General Conference. And the excitement as news spread from my deaconess sisters around the world who had mentored me was so special to be able to share this time and moments with them. And then the pandemic. Things shifted, but like our order does, we adjusted, welcoming classes into the order even if the official consecration could not happen yet. I must admit, this pretty confused my bishop in 2020 as he tried to figure out how to commission me during annual conference before I left to enter the mission field. I was the first deaconess missionary he had seen in a long time, and I just smiled and told him I liked doing things my own way. And so it's been the unending support from Megan, Jean, Sharon, my deaconess Ates, that I found a footing back here in Hong Kong, where I served as a young adult, in ministry as a missionary around migrants' rights work, and as a deaconess expanding that work also for human rights in the Philippines and beyond. For I know we are all beloved and special, even if at times the official church structure does not know how to handle us. For I would literally not be where I am today if it wasn't for the deaconess mentors throughout the past 35 years of my life who took the time to mentor me and continue to do so from around the globe. So I send you all love. Maraming salamat sa lahat. Ingat. Thank you all and take care.
Fire. Continue to light our way. When in doubt, be our guide. Let the fire of our devotion continue to glow even in the darkest moment of our journey.
Alab. Patuloy na liwanagan ang aming daan. Kapag may pagdududa, maging aming gabay. Hayaan ang alab ng ating debosyon na magpatuloy na kuminang kahit sa pinakamadilim na sandali ng ating paglalakbay.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Mindanao, Philippines. I'm Dr. John Mark D. Villanueva. I'm the youngest son of Reverend Lina D. Villanueva, batch 1965, who is here right now, and my sister, Deaconess Isusa May Villanueva Bautista, batch 1998. First and foremost, I thank God for blessing me with a deaconess mother and sister. Their life is a great influence to my spiritual and social life as a person. As a young boy, I already knew how committed and devoted my mother was in her ministry. She was true and faithful to her calling as a deaconess, and later as a pastor until her retirement from ministry. My mom is still active in the church as a Sunday school teacher As the saying goes, once a deaconess is always a deaconess, and that is my mother. Putting God first above all else is so evident in her life. Her intimacy with God through daily prayer and meditation is not just a personal spiritual discipline, but as a family as well. So I grew up with this kind of spiritual foundation. I have undergone so many crises in life and challenges, both personal and hospital-related issues. Last May 2021, I was exposed to COVID-19 virus to the point that I experienced between life and death situation. But I thank God for a deaconess and supportive mother, and to my family whose faith is so strong and persistent in their prayer life. God is so real and powerful through this episode of my life, and of course, I feel His daily presence after this experience. I believe God prepared me and called me to be in the medical profession, to exemplify the ministry my mother was doing, not only church-based, but community-related based. I see the resemblance of my calling and her calling that both redound to love and compassion to people with unconditional and intentional service. The quality of service is what I can emulate in my medical profession. In fact, our hospital motto is, we are at our best when we serve others, inspired, of course, to serve with excellence no matter what it takes. One of my God-given gifts is my love for church music, which was developed when I was in grade school. As my mother plays the organ and teaches choir, I was always beside her listening and later began to play the keyboard. At age 12, I was already playing the congregational hymns. When I went to college in my pre-med, I am the organist at the first service of the First United Methodist Church at Davao City. And during my medical proper training, I was also the organist at First UMC Cebu City. To this date, I am a full-time organist in my own local church, Wesley United Methodist Church. One outstanding virtue of my mother and sister is their generosity. I learned to be generous because I saw them the value of investing financial resources to people, especially among less fortunate young people, and also to my relatives needing education to pursue their dreams in life, starting from high school to college. Some have gone to full-time church ministry and others to different academic profession. Modesty aside, God has touched my life to sponsor deserving young people in their college education. Two are now medical doctors, one now in the third year medical proper, one pharmacist, two student nurses, and one student pastor. I hope and pray to continue this legacy of my mother. God willing, I hope to put up a scholarship foundation. I find joy and fulfillment of my purpose through my mother and my sister's influence, our faith in God that keep us strong, keep us serving to the fullest. There is nothing more rewarding and fulfilling than to see and feel the presence of God working in my whole family. My two sisters, their husbands and children, my wife, my daughter, myself, and my mother are all united in one faith, serving God faithfully and joyfully. Joshua 24:15 is our family scripture. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Praise God for a deaconess mother and sister who impacted my life and is the kind of person I am today. Thank you. To God be the glory. Amen.
Amen. The water symbolizes the tears of people from pain and joy. Let this remind us of God's way of baptizing us in faith, hope, and love.
We will have a 10-minute breakout. Each participant in your own breakout room will have 2 minutes to share. We just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to share. And we would like to ask your each of the breakout room to assign a leader so that you can share in the chat box later the highlights in your discussion. There are some guide questions that we want you to probably answer during your discussion to lead you in your discussion. What is your takeaway, after hearing all the stories, the testimonies of our speakers? And then who made a difference in your life? And how are you making a difference to other people?
In these days so dark and faithless, as the man of God unfolds, Christian, turn to help the helpless. Would you feed their hungry souls? Brother, sister, time is short now. Serve in love, live by faith, for the things of earth are passing. This could be the day. This could be the day that the Lord returns in glory. This could be the day that He calls His children home. So be faithful in service as you watch and pray. For this, oh this could be the day. In these days of desperation, when it's so hard to
Wow. So I'm always thankful to be with this group. I want to recap a little bit of the things that we have heard tonight. First, when we first gathered, God has gathered us as a community. I think it's important to remember that we didn't gather us, that God gathered us. Some of the comments that we heard from some of, and I know they're grown, but we're going to call them our children, the children. Heroes that wear invisible capes, with big hearts and beautiful spirits. Women in sisterhood, women in ministry are a force to be reckoned with. Solidarity is a daily life choice lived out as a verb in action. We had another that praised God for a deaconess mother and sister. I think as I listen to these amazing, again, I'm going to call them children because that's what we're kind of focused on. But so my wife is a deaconess and I am a home missioner. And we have 6 children that did not, at this point, choose to go into ministry, right? We made that choice, and they've kind of entered that life because we have. And what I took from tonight is a lot of hope, because I know that deaconesses, much of what we do sometimes is not easy. Sometimes the injustices that we see are hard and hurtful, and we have to sometimes, whether we like it or not, our kids see it. They sense the spirit of who we are. And so I was hopeful tonight listening to the words of all of these amazing, I'm going to call them young people, because they're all younger than me, probably. I was hopeful in the journey that they have chosen, and the excitement and influence that they felt from their deaconess mother, or the influence that they had. So another piece that I really connected with was something that Nora said, was the covenantal bond that forms between them. And I'm going to extend that to us. I think what is important for us to remember is that we are a family. No matter where we are in this beautiful world that God has created, God has called us into ministry together as deaconesses and home missioners. And we have chosen to be in one community. And so what I want to leave us with tonight and encourage us to do is to remember that we are a family, and that as deaconesses and home missioners, our work impacts our families. And so I want to encourage us to take care of one another's families. So when you see something that is going on in Ellen's family, I want to encourage us, no matter where we are, if we're in the Philippines, the US, in Hong Kong, wherever we might be, let's reach out, whether that's with card, email, whatever. Let's figure out a way to connect in covenant community with one another. And so in that last song, really, and I say that because what's important is this could be the day that the Lord returns in glory. And we want to take care of each other in this day. And so I'm going to leave you with these words tonight with from a wonderful mother's blessing. May you be full. Sometimes that may be sadness. Sometimes that may be joy, but may you be full. Amen.
Lead on, O cloud of presence, the Exodus has come. In wilderness and desert, our trip shall make its home. Our bondage left behind us, new hopes within us grow. We seek the land of promise, where milk and honey flow. Lean on, O fiery pillar, we follow yet with fears, but we shall come rejoicing, though joy be born of tears. We are not lost, though wandering, for by your light we come, and we are still God's people, and heaven is our home. Lean on, O God of freedom, and guide us on our way, and help us trust the promise through struggle and delay. We pray our sons and daughters may journey to that land where justice dwells with mercy and love is lost. Amen.
Let the blessing of the earth, wind, fire, and water be with us. Go forth, beloved, mahal na mga kapatid. May the gentle wisdom lead you to a better understanding of the ways of loving one another. May the radical spirit of freedom lead you to honest engagements for truth and justice. Go forth, continue to ask questions, and be generous to your being. Go forth, allow yourselves to be surprised, to be amazed, to be curious. Go forth, be rooted in your faith, hope in hope, and rejoice in love. Go forth and be a home to strangers and weary, be a banquet to the hungry and grieving. Go forth and forget not to laugh, to forgive, and to thrive.